There. It just, okay, so we've started the broadcast now.
We're ready.
Okay. So, are we just supposed to discuss our thoughts and feelings, like what we saw in the therapy session, what theories maybe he used, and ideas?
I think so.
So the instructions say that discuss your observations about how a skilled family therapist or a paraprofessional can help to introduce or reinforce concepts and behaviors that strengthen family resiliency.
Okay.
Yeah. So like based on the Walsh chapter 6, right? That we,
Yes.
part of our reading, we're supposed to tie that into how we thought the therapy session went, correct?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the main idea.
So do we want to like have each take a turn, or how do you think we should do it?
Yeah, I say we just, one of us starts and then just talks about, I can start if you guys want. I'm not shy at all. So.
Okay. Sounds great, Spencer.
Okay. And by the way, you'll get no judgments from us. We're pretty easygoing, so whatever works for us, we're laid back. Okay, so basically, I was really impressed with the family therapist thing. I thought it was so awesome to watch an actual therapist at work. What really stood out to me, and what I think where he was going with everything, is how many questions he asked. Did you guys notice, like, that is all he did was ask questions, and as soon as he got a foundation of what he thought the main idea was, he would explain it back to them and then ask them if that's what they thought was what was really going on. So what he appeared to do, from my perspective, is that he appeared to find the root of the issue, which seemed to be emotions. He really found out, it seemed like really quick. It took him forever to ask tons of questions, but it found out really quick that they all really cared about each other, and the whole problem that they were facing was rooted because of how they cared about each other, but they didn't know how to treat one another because someone was breaking their cycle, because the son was doing something different than what he's done before. So what I saw of what he did, of what the therapist did, was so he used their feelings to relate, and then he would connect everybody through feelings. He was like, did you guys notice that? He would say, so Dad, how do you feel? And then he'd say, Mom, how do you feel? And then once he was like, so you both really care about each other, and you want to work it out, but one of you gets really upset and the other one gets upset that the other one's getting upset. So he used their feelings to connect one another. And then I thought it was so awesome how he asked the daughter to switch places with the dad. And so he put the mom and dad in a place where they could actually show their affection. And I think that was on purpose. That's what he was trying to do. And then if you watch through the rest of it, the dad started putting his arm around his wife. He was holding her hand. So he built a place of comfort for he tried to do it for everyone, but it really worked for the mom and dad. And then you could feel more love coming through, or a little bit more connection with the rest of the family. So I think that's what the therapist did, was he built a foundation of what the family already had. And he even said that that's what he was going to do. He was like, I don't do anything. You guys fix everything. Mom and dad have the recipe, and they can use divine intervention to solve your own problems. I'm just going to kind of guide you. And then he told him about how he was going to create a plan. So he didn't do anything definitive. He didn't say, this is what we're going to do. He said, so I think we're going to try having you guys spend more time with one another and kind of talking. And that was basically what it came down to. He gave them each an assignment. He had the dad ask the mom out on a date, which I thought was really cool. He even had the son and the daughter kind of go ask each other out on a date too, I thought that was really cool. So he connected everybody, and he had them commit to spend time with one another and then talk about. He didn't even say that they had to talk about anything specific. He just said spend time and talk. He even said maybe for the son to give some advice to the daughter about graduation, or about, being a senior. So I get that was like the main. I think that was basically what I got. Go ahead.
So can I jump in? This is to add on to what you were saying when you talked about how he asked so many questions, and then he'd ask them, "Is that right? You know,
Yeah.
is that how you're feeling?" I thought actually one of the principles that I tied to from our reading was the clarifying ambiguity,
Yes.
and that because the family members, like they could see the actions of each other, but they didn't understand the emotions, like you said, behind it. And what he was trying to do was put meaning behind what was happening and to clear up the miscommunications. I thought that for that first meeting, that was really important. The one especially when he was asking Jimmy, was it Jimmy?
I think
Yeah.
that was his name.
Jimmy, how he felt about how he thought his mom felt about him when she was yelling, and he said, and his dad, he said they're worried that I'm going to be a screw up, and they really were more worried about his life, and they were trying to show love, but he thought that they were mad because it was reflecting badly on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a great thing that he pulled out of just that first conversation with them, that once he could clear away miscommunication and really understand the meaning behind what was going on in their home, that seemed to help them see it from a different side.
Which actually, it's funny you say that, because one of the things that I noted is that by helping them see things differently, he was trying to gear them towards what we read in this last lesson, which is a crucible perspective. I don't know if you guys caught that. Like, it seemed like he was basically trying to change. He did it slowly, and he didn't do it directly. He did it through asking questions, getting them to explain their real emotions. And so then he was changing their perspective, the way they saw things, into a more positive way, or into seeing one another more positively, I guess is kind of what he was doing. So he was using crucible perspective, or trying to, is what I saw.
I've noticed that these principles, like the crucible and this the thing that we had to read, the chapter 6, that they're building. Like, I think they pulled in some of the mindfulness. Like, he was trying to change those negative feelings to positive ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed that I thought was interesting is in the chapter, it talks about like making their situation normal, and like bringing in normalcy. And I at first I noticed that Jimmy he would look at the therapist, but he rarely looked at anyone else in the family when he was speaking or when they were speaking. And once like, from my perspective, I was like, dude, just tell him what a loser he is, that he needs to, like, the reason why your parents are upset is because you're not coming home. I was like, that it's so simple. But he didn't do that. He made everybody feel good about their intentions, not their actions, but about their intentions. And he created a situation where, by physically moving them and by focusing on the positives, by the end, Jimmy was looking at everybody more. Not completely, but he seemed so much more relaxed, more comfortable. He wasn't grabbing at his pants or looking away. And I thought that was so impressive. I also was so impressed that what I ended up realizing is he's not going to solve all of their problems in one session. He focused on a couple of things to, first of all, just bring the family together, to start opening communication. And you can't, and I'm a problem solver. So, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, you should just tell him, dude, stop staying out late, stop hanging out with these friends, and then your parents will, feel better about things. And he never did that. And I realized how important it was that he didn't do that, because he wanted to create a positive atmosphere, to let them have a positive relationship with him, and to just tackle one thing at a time. And he started out with communication and getting them to feel more comfortable. And I thought that was I was so impressed with that by the end. And it made perfect sense to do it that way, so they weren't overwhelmed either. Because I don't think they had realized what was going on and needed time to kind of figure it out on their own. And I just was really impressed with the whole thing.
Right. I think there's more to that too, and I think that the problem isn't that he was just coming home late at night. I think that was a symptom of the problem, and I think the therapist did a really good job of pointing out that that we weren't dealing with a problem of a kid who just needs to come home later at night. We were dealing with a problem of a mom who is feeling worried about her child because she loves him. And instead of saying, hey, I love you so much, I'm worried about you, he would come home and then get yelled at. And in response, Jimmy was going, oh, why would I want to be here? I just get yelled at when I'm here. And so he was feeling hurt and feeling like he wasn't being loved because of everyone's response. And I think the therapist did a good job of, you know, a lot of times I think we react to situations and what we see from each other is the reaction instead of the real issue. And so the therapist did a good job of getting to what the real challenge was and then taking the family's organization. Like at one point he asked them, what else do you guys like to do for fun? And they talked about camping, and the dad talked about NASCAR racing, and he identified with them. But then he also later said, you know, to Jimmy and the dad, when do you guys talk? And one of them said, well, when we go driving. And that's when he said, well, maybe you could drive some this week. Maybe you could go for a drive. Maybe dad could take you to the skate park. And so I think we saw there in the reading, it talks about meaning and mastery of the crisis. So the crisis seemed like it was him coming home late at night, when really the meaning was the emotions behind it that you mentioned. And then reorganization of family structural patterns, instead of yelling and fighting, being able to talk about that. And then the development of effective communication and problem-solving strategies, which would be them spending more time together, mom and dad going on dates, and building that communication with each other in positive settings instead of waiting until they're just arguing and yelling at each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's really important that you said that, because I think what the whole therapist, and you know, it's funny that you even talked about how he introduced himself. First I thought that was really awkward at the very beginning. I don't know if you guys did.
Oh, did I? I was, well, and he kept saying something that I thought was, I don't know, and I still not sure how I feel about it, so I'd love to hear what you guys thought, where he kept saying, this might seem kind of dumb.
Yeah.
This might feel kind of dumb. This might seem kind of dumb. And I just felt like he was undermining his ideas of things by saying, oh, this might seem dumb.
I think this is totally my perspective. I could be wrong, but I think he was doing that to make himself seem more down to earth. Like,
I think he was trying to like relate to them and make them feel comfortable, but it was uncomfortable for me too.
Yeah,
It was for me
But I
too.
think he had a motivation maybe behind it. What do you guys think?
Well, I thought he could have changed it something like, this may sound like a simple thing, you know, dumb has such a negative
I know,
connotation.
that's what I thought too, but he stopped doing it, you know, a little further in. So I was just unsure about that part, because I don't know. I would think that probably wouldn't be a good approach. But that being said, he did a really good job of doing what he was supposed to be doing. And, you know,
I wonder if he didn't use that method to bring down some barriers, because you know how the family all talked about how each of them were nervous? I would imagine that therapists get used to that. Everyone's nervous about coming in, and they don't want to be seen as authoritative figure and as like a dictator who's going to fix all their problems or tell them how to do things. And so I wonder if he's learned to do that as a way to mitigate the feelings of nervousness and the feelings of, oh, well, he thinks he's better than us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of goofy.
he made a lot
and
of
maybe
like
not a way
really,
you'd want to do it in person,
Yeah.
but
he made a lot of really corny puns and, you know, jokes and stuff like that. And I didn't see like a really favorable response from really any of them, especially not Jimmy. But I think it did make them feel more comfortable and open up more. So I found that part of it really interesting, and wondered if it was intentional or if it was just, you know, his manner.
I personally,
it may be his personality.
It could have been, but I thought his personality, and the more we watched it, you realized he was more of an intellectual guy. And I think it could have been two things. One, he's either really awkward, or he was trying, because there's kids there, or young adults, I guess. He was trying to relate to them in a way of using slang like dumb or stupid, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought he was trying to do.
In another one of our classes, there's a section that we're taking, and they talk about building a relationship of trust, and people won't learn from you or won't be able to gain any kind of perspective if they don't trust you. And so I think that was part of why he was like, yeah, this is really dumb. This is a stupid suggestion, but you might try it. Is because then it made them feel like, oh, he's not just this person that's going to fix every problem we have. This is going to be something that we can talk to him about, and it's reciprocal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I also thought it was good in the reading. It talks about solving, presenting problems, seek opportunities for personal and relational growth out of the crisis that brings them for help. I thought it was interesting that he suggested the dad talk to Jimmy about how do you become a man? Like, where do you go from here? Because he's out of school, although at one point they went back to him being in school during the video.
Yes.
Did you catch that too?
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
The
They just fell out of character.
Yeah, the sister was like, yeah, he's in school with me. And I was like,
Right.
I thought he would
No,
graduate.
he's not. Yeah. But I thought it was good that they did that, and I thought it pointed to how therapists can help to, even in middle of a crisis, help them to grow in other ways other than just that one problem too.
And I thought it was interesting too that, he was able to get out from the father, that he didn't have a good relationship with his father, and that they
Yeah.
never talked. And so I think that the father, because of his experience with his own father, had taken kind of a hands-off approach, and that, he, looking at his wife, he felt like she was obviously coming on too strong, but maybe he could do a little bit better. And I think that therapists did a great job of not trying to immediately repair her relationship with Jimmy, but having the husband start first to kind of guide him more, communication with him more, and then I'm sure in later sessions they could work on that. But I thought it was really smart and interesting that the people he put together were Jimmy and the daughter to go out, the husband and wife to go out, and then the father and Jimmy to go out, but he did not have the mother and Jimmy do anything. Did you guys think that was, I just
thought
thought
it
it
was
was really
interesting.
significant.
I thought that was really interesting because he found that the father and Jimmy both related to each other better, and that's why he wanted them to go out. I think that if it had been Jimmy was really relating to his mom better than his dad, then he would have had them go out. And I think that just shows like that he understood the relationship and how each person played, like what role they played in the family, and which people better understood each other.
Right.
I think,
I think
too,
he
it
also
could be,
did it. Oh, sorry, Tina, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sunny.
I was going to say that I think I think it was Tina who talked about normalizing anyway.
It was me.
Who was it?
Ben.
Jen.
Okay, sorry. That also their reactions, when he was talking about how Jimmy and his dad really understood each other, and the mom and the daughter reacted more the same way, that he said, actually, that's normally what we see, the difference between men and women, and women are more verbal, and men tend to turn into themselves when that it's just part of their makeup. And I thought that probably helped them so Jimmy doesn't say, why does mom always act this way? Why does she always yell at me? That it's just making their family dynamics seem more normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed he did the same thing with the conflicts, where he talked about families go through conflicts and families disagree about things. He said the same kind of thing. This isn't an abnormal thing. This is normal. My own family has problems with communication. And I think that helped them feel like that they weren't this abnormal family that was struggling with this one problem. It was just general to everyone.
Yeah, and he also did that with his son by telling him, just finishing school and not really having direction, that's also normal. Instead of like raising concerns about who he was hanging out with, that that no one ever said he was working, but I kind of got the impression that he maybe didn't have a job or didn't really have any plans to progress in life. But instead of like focusing on that as an issue, he talked about how it's normal sometimes to just in that stage kind of not know where you're going and kind of to get lost. And I thought that was a really positive take on something that I would have had serious concerns about,
Yeah.
Yeah, he also used that mother bear example too to explain the mother's overreaction to everything, that grizzly bears are the most dangerous animals in protecting their cubs.
Yeah,
I think, if I recall, he used maybe 2 or 3 analogies like that. But he didn't use a lot of them. So he used the mother bear one. What was the other one? The tissue in the
the connective tissue.
yeah, the connective tissue that women
have 5 times more.
Oh, right. Yeah.
just express themselves a little bit more than men do. And he used those analogies, and he used another one too. It was for the kids though, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But he used them to relate to their situation, exactly like what you guys were saying. He was helping them explain their situation, making them feel comfortable, which I thought he did such an amazing job. You could see the barriers coming down, which I thought the actors were really good because you could feel the tension from the beginning, and then through the whole process, you could see them lighting up. The mother and father holding hands, his arm around his wife. Jimmy, even his body language loosened up a little bit too, if you watch.
So did the daughters, because at the beginning the daughter had her arms folded and she just was like all to herself, and then
she was mad.
Yeah, she seemed mad. She seemed really mad at Jimmy.
She did. She seemed really angry in the beginning, but at the end, she did seem to loosen up and seem to kind of almost seem sad. And then it was interesting to watch their dynamics when they talked about the two of them going out together, because neither one of them wanted to say, yeah, let's do that. But they both seemed to want to do that, but didn't want to be the one who was vulnerable, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, I thought it was interesting that she was like, the way he explained it to them, and I personally, listening to it, would have probably never thought of this, but I thought it was so insightful that he is growing up. He is at a stage where he's distancing himself from the family. And I think that was really the underlying issue for her. She was missing the brother that she used to have, but he was pulling away. And of course there's other reasons, as we know, but it's time to pull away. It's time for him to, at his age. And I think that's what she was missing, was the distance that had been created. And I think when she understood that, she kind of was able to take it for what it was, instead of worrying that he was pulling away because he was engaging in dangerous activities and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought another thing that the therapist did really well is I have this in mind, that he reinforced their shared strengths. So like he kept talking about how much they loved each other, how much they really cared about each other. Instead of going back to the issue and just pounding that to death, he reinforced, you really do love each other. You really do care about each other. Jimmy, you care about your sister and she cares about you. You might not be showing it in the most appropriate ways, but the reason that they're acting this way is because they care about each other. And showing compassion for one another. Like, I think that all of that just really stood out to me, that he just kept going back to what they all had together instead of what they were fighting about.
Well, one thing that I thought was really amazing, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but it's kind of like what Cammie was saying, but the therapist like we know, he would ask tons of questions and find out what's going on. And then even when it was really negative responses from the family, like when the mother would say how upset she was, or the daughter would say she's so angry at Jimmy, he would use his own words to explain their feelings, but he would never do it in condescending or negative tones. So he kept it strictly emotional, saying, well, because of how much they care about you, they're upset, and so that feeling of frustration comes out in yelling, so he kind of changes the way they
view the situation.
Yeah, view the situation, and used it in a positive way. I thought that was really impressive. That he takes.
So do you think that qualifies as reframing?
I do.
I kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that it could have been reframing, and there were so many principles that were displayed in here,
and they were kind of all intertwined.
Yeah,
That's true.
Because I also it could also be considered an empathetic connection, where they're empathizing with one another and making those connections, that you're behaving this way because you love me, not because of anything else.
Yeah. The article also talks about being a team member and letting, how does it say it? Sorry, I was trying to find it again. Oh, it says, therapists recast a problem as an external force that is responsible for wreaking havoc in family members' lives. The therapist's goal is to align with the child and family as partners. And I think he did that as really well, in that he told them several times, I can't do this for you, but what do you think? What if we did this? And then you can come back and report to me next week. I also thought it was really interesting. Did you catch that he threw in a family council? Did you get that?
Yeah.
like he suggested. And maybe you guys can meet on Sunday for 30 minutes and
Yeah.
and talk about your plans. And I thought, oh, that is family council.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thought that was good.
I go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, I thought too that one of the principles from the reading, that adopting a positive and future-oriented focus, that he didn't stay focused on the problem and he didn't try to fix it. He just said, okay, well, let's move forward. Let's try these different things this week, the date, the time with each other, and let's try to build, have some conversations. And I thought it was all positive and moving forward, not let's look back and see what the problem is. Let's all move forward, and I like that.
Yeah.
That was good.
I like that too. Along with that, I wrote that he made short-term goals to help them work towards their long-term goals. Because obviously the long-term goal was to not fight anymore, but he did that through like having the parents go on a date, having the brother and sister talk to one another. Like those little things help them we're eventually going to help them get to that bigger goal of not fighting and knowing where each other was and having that better relationship.
And being able to communicate the actual feelings behind what they're doing instead of just reacting with angry tones.
Right. Yeah, communicating, and just as he told the mother and father, communicating in a positive, what did he say? He said, well, you guys are holding hands in a loving way. I think that's what he said. So it's not just saying, oh, you do this. It's the communication through positivity and that emotion of love, which is positivity in the end,
I also really liked how at the end he asked how it felt to be there that day. How did it feel to be there talking about that? And I thought that was a really good chance for everyone to kind of recap and to see that, oh, they came in feeling really nervous, but they're leaving feeling much better.
Yeah, and one other thing that I thought was really interesting, just because for me personally, in the beginning I was focused on something different than he was, is like thinking about the family situation and what's going on. And even when he asked Jimmy point blank if he was doing anything that he shouldn't be as far as alcohol and drugs, and Jimmy said no, I personally didn't really believe him. I don't know what you guys thought, but I think there's definitely an issue there. And so in my mind, I was thinking that would be the primary and main issue, which is what the family, I think, also was thinking. But under, what we've learned about systems theories and stuff, it's a family problem. You have to look at the whole family. And so rather than focus on Jimmy, who's the symptomatic person, he decided to focus on the family and try to, fix the family issues, which then could possibly result in Jimmy's issue. And I just feel like that was a really powerful lesson for me, because listening to it at first, I was like, oh my gosh, this kid's in a big, bad situation. He's in a dangerous situation. He's really in trouble. But he didn't even really focus on that. He focused on the family because like we've learned and understand, there's underlying issues that are causing that in him. And so for me personally, to be able to just watch that and then see what he took away from it, I thought it was wonderful, and I was really impressed with that. It taught me a lot.
So I had a little different take. When he said he wasn't doing those things, the skate park that he's talking about is about half a block from my house, and it's in the middle of a nature park, and we're over there all the time. My little 9-year-old likes to ride his bike all over the park, and my neighbor's little boy, 5-year-old, he just takes off sometimes, and she'll drive around looking for him. And one day she found him at the skate park, and there was a group of boys there that were skating, probably like Jimmy and his friends, and they were watching out for him, and they were teaching him tricks, and they were just super kind. And the mom next door, she's a single mom, and those kids offered, they said, we'd love to have him come and we'll work with him. And so I thought, maybe he's not in as much trouble as his family thinks he is, because they're really, most of the time the kids there, like there is some bad things that go on, but for the most part, they're really kind and just, they want to be there. And so so I didn't necessarily not believe him, because I know a lot of kids over there that aren't doing those things.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily, I didn't doubt him at all. I actually thought, oh yeah, he's just a kid who's not enjoying being at home. And he's at that age where there's not a lot for them at home anymore. They don't feel compelled to be with the family. The thing that motivates them the most, it's friends. That's what they're motivated by, friends and family, or friends and fun. And so, for me, I just thought, um, I, I figured he was probably being truthful, but I thought from a mom's perspective, we have a tendency to go to the worst case scenario. And so I can see why she thought, oh no, what's happening to my child? I'm losing control. And we become, a lot of times as parents, we can parent out of fear instead of faith, and that tends to get us into trouble.
It's so funny that you say that, Tina, because I'm more with Jen on this one, only because I was a teenage boy, and I had those friends, and I did those things. and so for me, I'm sitting here listening to this kid say, oh no, I hang out with them, but I don't do that. And I'm like, no, dude. If you hang out with them, you do it. I know.
That's how I felt too. I mean, it's not just about the skate park. He wasn't just.
Do we know that his friends are doing it?
No.
Yeah, they said the sister knows his friends. They all drink. They're all into drugs. He's staying out really late, going to their parties. Using. They're all. The sister knows what kind of kids they are, and so, I mean, I'm like you, Spencer. Maybe you and I have just. The world, I don't know, but if you're hanging out with those kind of people all the time and going to those kinds of parties, I'm very skeptical that you wouldn't be participating.
And that's part of the reason why the parents had a legitimate concern, is because that is what happens. I mean, we learn through the gospel that whenever you step away from the light or turn your back on the light, you step into darkness. That's kind of how it works. But what I thought was amazing is, even with that understanding, I'm sure the therapist knows those things, and even with all of this, and I find it interesting that we all have this difference of opinion about it, but he didn't express any type of opinion, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
He didn't insert himself into the situation. He didn't say, hey, like I would, dude, you're way off. I know what's going on.
Exactly. That's what I thought was very significant about it, and I think it was perfect. I mean, like, it's not what I would have thought should have happened, but in the end, I was just amazed and so impressed because it felt like the perfect thing to do. Let's start with the family. Let's start with communication. Let's get these relationships back on track, and then we'll tackle that farther on down if it is still an issue. And he was looking at the family as the issue, and that may solve all the other problems without having to single out Jimmy. And I thought that was really amazing.
Which is actually why I agree with everybody, with you, Jen, and with Tina, because what I really like about what Tina was saying was that because you shouldn't, even as a parent, you shouldn't jump to conclusions. Because in reality, you shouldn't, even if you do have that experience like Jen and I do. Because I was that kid. I mean, I know what goes on, and I still see it. But even if you have that experience, you shouldn't let it warp your view, especially in a therapy setting. So that's why I was so impressed with the therapist. And I really do agree with what you're saying, Tina. And I wish I saw things that way. But for me, it's more of recognizing that regardless of how I see it, that is what. And even if Jimmy was lying when he said that I'm not drinking, even if he was, the therapist said, well, if you said it, then I believe you. That's essentially what he's like, well, that's awesome. So now let's move on. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was really impressive.
I think with that, too, that the therapist had to build trust with Jimmy so that Jimmy wouldn't dismiss him as someone who doesn't care or who won't listen. That when Jimmy said, I'm not doing those things, had the therapist said, really? Be honest, he would have just discounted everything he said. And because I think he's trying to build a trust that goes both ways.
Yeah.
Right.
That is a greater
It's
lesson.
that partnership thing we talked about, being the child partner.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that, it goes back to what Tina said about being a parent. When you do overreact like that and you are motivated out of fear instead of faith, then it does break down the trust in between you and your child. It's good to kind of step back and see things before you react. And the mother had definitely she was terrified, you could tell, and she was reacting with fear, which resulted in anger. And because he was a guy, and following the pattern of his father, all that did was just push him away even more and make the problem worse.
Spencer, so you said that you were that kid, you were that kid doing those things. But as a parent, do you think that if you responded to your child and said, hey, no way, because I was that kid, I know, how do you think your kid would respond?
Oh, he would immediately say, you have no idea. You don't know what I'm going to. I have a 6-year-old boy, so we kind of know already. It's funny because my first reaction is, in my mind, I think, oh, I know what's going on. But in reality, I really don't. I just know what's going on from my experience, but it doesn't mean I'm necessarily right. Tina and Sonny, you really could be right about the scenario if this scenario was actually real. Who really knows?
Jimmy is the only one that really knows.
Jimmy's the only one.
And just because Spencer had that experience doesn't mean his kids are going to have the same experience. They could just go to parties and not partake in anything. And just because you have that experience doesn't mean necessarily make them lying to you.
My son's been teaching me that since he was 3. He tells me, Daddy, you don't know. You don't know what my friends are like, you know? And I'm like, no, Riley, you're right. I don't know, buddy. But a lot of me has learned that you can't insert yourself just because you've experienced one thing doesn't mean that you can assert yourself into someone else's situation, because it's not the same experience, even though it may be extremely similar.
And I think that's what the therapist did so well, is he didn't put himself in the situation. He didn't make any conclusions at all. It was the first session. He just, let them talk, and he didn't, put down any judgments or make any very specific suggestions about how they needed to change things and do things different.
Yeah.
And that was really powerful because he put it on them.
Right.
Do you think in the future he should make judgments?
No, I think as a therapist, you can never come off as judgmental or that you're judging your clients, because then they lose trust in you and they're not going to listen. And then why are you having sessions with them and trying to help them in the first place?
I think two things. One thing is I agree you can never make judgments, but even as a therapist, the more you meet with your clients and you're able to connect with them a little bit differently, you may be able to be a little bit more bold. So maybe 4 or 5 sessions down the road, Jimmy opens up a little bit more, and then the therapist can say, well, Jimmy, you told me before that you don't drink. Well, is that true? He can be a little bit more bold, but he doesn't necessarily have to ever doubt him, or, it just depends on the scenario, I think.
Go back and say, Jimmy, you told us before that you don't drink, but I know that's a lie, so now tell us the truth, because I think that would break trust.
Yeah, it's really a presentation. Yeah.
Well, and I think, too, that if it was a one-on-one session as opposed to the whole family, that he might be more willing to open up and talk, and that's just a different situation.
Yeah.
I wondered if he was going to do that. That's funny you say that, Sonny. I was like, I wonder if he'll meet with them individually now.
Which, if you're doing the family therapy, you probably wouldn't.
Probably. Well, sometimes you can. Especially
we've done family therapy before, and we've met individually with the therapist.
You have? Yeah.
Yep.
My brother did too.
Yeah. It's helpful because then if people are feeling like they can't share, they often feel like they can share more individually with a therapist, and then the therapist can then help the family to see that, or they can teach that person individually how to communicate that feeling back to the family and stuff like that. So it's helpful.
I thought both kids would have benefited from individual sessions, actually.
Yeah, because I think the daughter is at risk there, because I think she's at risk for feeling like everything is revolving around Jimmy now. The contention, the stress, everything, and mom and dad are really, or at least mom, is really, really hyper-focused from what we saw in the therapy session on Jimmy. And the daughter may be hyper-focusing on Jimmy also because it gets attention from mom and dad. And so I wonder if there isn't a need to deal with mom's relationship with Maddie as well. I don't know, just an at-risk relationship perhaps.
I thought so too.
I think you're totally right, because if she starts feeling like Jimmy's the only one getting the attention, then she might start choosing to act out in ways that he has been, or that he's been accused of, at least, so that she can get some more attention, and then it just becomes a really bad loop of bad behavior.
Feedback group.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. Well, what do we need to do next, guys?
I think we just go like summarize what we talked about
Okay.
for like a couple of minutes.
Jen, did you get everything?
Yeah, I type super fast, and so I've got pretty much everything. But I mean, there's like some error. Like, so is Sunny? Are you supposed to submit it, or transcript, or what do we do?
So
Either
we're
of you can submit it as long as only one does it.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'd like to. What I'll do is I'll clean it up, and then real quick, just right after we're done, and then I'll send it to y'all to look over because I might have missed a thing here or two that you guys feel is very important to put in.
Okay.
And
That would be great.
if you want, we can, I'll just send you guys it in Word, and do you guys know how to just do red line strikeout or add in or whatever?
Chart
Or we can
changes.
do it in Google Docs where it's a doc that we all share.
Oh yeah, Google Docs is a good idea.
Okay. I'll put it
Google
in
Docs
Google
would be good.
Docs and send it to you guys so you can look it over. And then whoever, I could submit it or whoever wants to can.
Can we decide who's going to and when?
I think it'll be easier if we submit the video because we
We
have
have
the
the
link. You guys don't even have it.
Right.
Perfect.
I mean,
Okay, and I'll submit the
Wait, we have to submit them together.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay.
Spencer will, or I will submit both of them.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay,
we'll
so-
do the Google Docs. You'll do that now, Jen. Is that right?
As soon as we get off, I'll set it up, and I've got it in Word right now. I'll set it up in Google Docs and send it to everyone to look over and edit, and then you guys can submit it once everybody's had a chance to look at it. And then if we want to summarize real quick, I'll just type the summary up.
Okay. Well, let's do it before we summarize. Let's do a time. So you'll submit that maybe by end of day today to Google Docs, Jen.
Yes.
And then, should we say by tomorrow night? Would everyone have a chance to look at it
I think that's perfect. Yeah.
by Thursday night? And then you guys can submit it on Friday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll submit it Friday morning.
Okay.
Just
does that work?
when everyone's had a chance to go into Google Docs and add their input, everyone email us or me or Tammy.
Just email Spencer.
Yeah, email me and let us know that you're done, and then we know that everybody's done.
Okay.
That's great.
Perfect.
Okay.
You and
Okay, so summarize.
Okay.
You want us to summarize what all we've talked about, or do you want to just read back the notes of what we've talked about as a summary?
Yeah, Jim, can you
Okay.
read back some of what you have and we'll just say
Sure.
nod our heads as you read?
So Spencer started out talking about how he was really impressed with the opportunity to watch a family therapy session. What really stood out was how many questions were asked, that the therapist asked multiple questions. And once he got the foundation of what was going on, he explained it back to them and asked them if that's what was really going on. He was trying to find the root of the issue, which seemed to be their emotions. And he found it out fairly quickly and discovered really fast that they all cared about each other but didn't know how to treat one another because someone was breaking the cycle. And he thought it was really good for the therapist use feelings to relate. And he connected everyone through their feelings and asked them how they felt, discussed about them getting upset, asked the daughter to switch with the dad, and then the couple started to show affection to one another. He built a place of comfort for each member and built a foundation of what the family already had. He told them what he was going to do and told them he was going to create a plan for them and told them that they needed to spend some time talking with one another. And that's what it came down to, dad and mom on a date, the son and daughter making plans to go out, connecting everyone together, and have them commit to spend time with one another. And ask the son to give advice to the daughter about being a senior in high school. And then Penny said, that he asked so many questions and then asked him if it was right. This principle tied to him clearing up I don't know, I can't even say that word.
ambiguity.
And he could see their action. He could see that they were having actions but didn't understand the emotions behind it. And he tried to put meaning behind what was going on and clear up miscommunication. And when he asked Jimmy how he thought his mom felt about him yelling, he said they thought he was going to be a screw up. And what they were trying to do was show him love and caring. And he thought it was a good thing to pull out from them so that they could clear up their. And Spencer said one thing he noted that was by helping them see things differently, they created a crucible perspective, and they did it through asking questions and asking them to feel real emotion. And Sunny said that the principles, along with crucible, there was also mindfulness. And then Tina talked about how that it was more than just a problem that he was coming home late. There was an underlying issue. The mom was feeling worried about the child, and she was reacting with anger, and in response, he was pulling away, not feeling love. The therapist would pass the reactions into real issues and ask them what they like to do for fun. He identified with them and then asked them, to talk together and to go on a drive, which is when the father and son would normally communicate. And he saw that the crisis was him coming home late at night, and that they were fighting, and he was feeling unloved. And the problem solving would be to spend time together and open the communication. And then we talked about how it was kind of awkward at first, the way he started relating to the family, and talked about him saying, this seems kind of dumb, or this might seem dumb. And that we thought it was kind of a negative thing, but we think he was trying to get on their level and learn what he was trying to do was to mitigate feelings of nervousness. And maybe it's just part of his personality and Spencer said he thought he might be an intellectual, that they were trying to relate to the young adults. And Cami said, building a relationship of trust, you must gain perspective. And he made them feel like he was on their level and they could talk to him. Then Tina said that there are a lot of opportunities for personal and relational growth, and that he told him to talk to Jimmy about what to do in school. And I brought up that the relationships that he told him to work on that week were the father and Jimmy and the sister and the mom and dad to go on a date, but not the mom and Jimmy. That he wanted to start with the people who had better relationships. And Cami said that they understood each other better, so he was starting with that. And then Sunny talked about normalizing the behavior, and that Jimmy and the dad understood each other, and the mom and the daughter understood each other, and that was a normal thing of how men and women relate differently, and that's how their family dynamic was, and that their conflicts were normal, and the son being lost at this stage of his life is normal, and that the mother bear thing was also normal, that he used all of those as analogies and examples to explain why they felt the way they did. And then we talked about how the barriers started to come down, they started to lighten up. The body language started to lighten up. The daughter seemed very angry at first, but at the end she seemed to loosen up and became almost even sad. And when they were asked if they wanted to go out together, the brother and sister, they both wanted to do that. He kept talking, Cami said the therapist kept talking about how much they loved each other. And he repeated it over and over again, that they did care for each other, and he showed compassion and understanding. And Spencer said, he asked a lot of questions. Even when he got negative responses, he would use his own words to explain their feelings, but always in a positive way, not condescending or negative tones. We talked about how he did a lot of reframing, and Cami said it was also an empathetic connection. And he talked about, aligning the family as partners. And he also threw in a family council, which was really cool. And then they focused on moving into the future, not looking back to the past. They made short-term goals to have them work to long-term goals. They talked about communicating your feelings instead of anger, and communicating in a loving way through positive things. Tina brought up that he asked about how everyone felt about being there, and that they came in nervous and left happy. And Sunny talked about how she had a different take than I did on the issues with me being serious with the drugs and alcohol and stuff, that she actually knows a skate park, and she knows that the kids there are really helpful and have helped out a child that she knows and invited him to come. So in her opinion, Jimmy's not in as much trouble as his parents think he is. And Tina also felt that same way. Then Spencer and I, talked about how we felt like Spencer did from being a teenage boy himself and having those issues. He was a little skeptical that there may be something more going on. And then he talked about how when you step away from the light, you step into darkness. And I brought up that I liked how he didn't focus on Jimmy. He focused on the family, even though Jimmy was the one showing the symptoms. And we kind of talked about that for a while. Then we talked about how the therapist needed to build trust with Jimmy. So he said he believed him when he said he wasn't, which is important to do. And how important it is to not react with fear, but to react with faith, because fear causes anger and can push people away. And then we talked about, let's see, I'm still going on that thing where we were talking back and forth about Jimmy and his issues. And then you can never make judgments as a therapist. You need to get to know them, and then you can be more bold. Jimmy could open up more, and then they could work on it later once they had trust. And then we talked about how it was a family session. So it was something that needed to be related to the family, and that maybe in an individual session they could work specifically on Jimmy. And then Tina talked about how she'd experienced that, and they did do both family and individual. Is that right, Tina?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And that it helped them to talk about things that they couldn't say in front of the family and work on individual things. And Sunny said she thought that both of the kids could have really benefited from an individual session. And that's about it. That there was maybe a concern that the daughter would start to act out if Jimmy was getting all the attention, and she felt like she needed some more attention.
So, Jen, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my
You did a
goodness.
great job.
It's what I do for work, so.
Wow.
Kind of
I would have gone like everyone talked nicely to each other. Like nothing.
Yeah, I would have got a paragraph maybe out of all that.
Well, I mean, it might be too much, so feel free to cut it down.
No.
Focus on the things that are more germane if you feel like, you need to. So.
I think that was
Awesome.
You basically word for word, verbatim what we discussed. So that was really impressive. Thank you for doing that, Jen. That's all. Sharing your
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
And I kind of did it in a script format because I just feel like that it's important to show who said what and how we related to each other also, and our different opinions. Because if I was just saying it without our names, then I don't feel like it would be I feel like it's very significant that we had different takes on what was really going on with Jimmy and stuff. And so that's the way I formatted it with your name and then what you said during that particular part of the conversation. So check what I put for each of you. And if you want to change it, if I didn't really get the point that you were trying to make and stuff, feel free to change that. But I did set it up as like a script format, so it would be better for her, for her to understand who was saying what and how we were able to discuss things.
That sounds great.
I think that's wonderful. I'm wondering if maybe we want to start the document with a summary of kind of our overall feelings of the session and then go into the script, or end with a summary. Either one I think would work.
Well, the summary is generally at the end, but I'm fine with either way.
Yeah, I don't really care either way.
Could we have one person summarize, now that we've gone over it? It's hard to have have multiple people have one person summarize, and then if people need to add in, they can, or, and focus mainly on the things that relate to what we learned about in chapter 6,
I'd be happy to do the summary.
Okay. Do you want to just say it now and I'll type it up, or do you want to just type it yourself and add it to the doc?
Why don't I add it? If you'll send me the Google Docs, I'll summarize it and add it.
Okay.
And I have to go pick up kids from school after this, but when I get done doing that, I'll come back and do it. So
okay,
I'll get it done this evening.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you guys all for everything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
That was
Thank
really
you for your patience in getting us on.
And Jen, I want you in every group meeting that I have from now on.
Right?
Amen.
I guess being an office manager for 20 years has paid off,
Apparently. My goodness. That is awesome. Thank you, guys. You were great.
All right. Thanks, everybody. It was great to work with all of you.
You too. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Okay,
Bye.
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 Bye.